Brace for impact. Cross the line.
This is my destiny. It is the truth I see. In this world I find a way to cross the line. Everybody's doing what everybody's doing. Everybody's doing the same thing. I'll be doing what I'll be doing. I'll be doing my thing. The world spins round to the right, they say. I'll be spinning the other way. Doing what I can, doing what I know. The world's my stage and I'm the show. It is my destiny. It is the truth I seek. In this world I find a way to cross the line. No possibilities for originality. Don't be left behind. Go ahead and cross the line.
Hey now, it's a little quick live and wake up with Uncle Mike edition of Brace for Impact, and I'm going solo on that ass, but it's still the same. We're talking some TNA wrestling. I did a live stream yesterday for the Patreon, and I talked, some news, some free agency. We talked Myron Reed, we talked Killer Kelly, Cedric Alexander, and we had some other. We talked Leon Slater and AJ Styles, WWE. TNA talent exchange, all that. And after I got off the air, the news broke that I think it was by Mike Johnson from PW Insider. The news broke that the Rascalz were no longer under contract in TNA. Their contracts had expired. They were not able to work out a new deal. That doesn't mean that they're completely gone. That doesn't mean they're gone forever. That doesn't mean they're out of the company. That just means their contracts have expired, and maybe they'll work out a new deal. But they're free to go anywhere. They're free to sign with AEW. They're free to sign with the WWE. And we'll talk about that. I want to hear your guys' opinions as to what you guys think will actually happen with them. I have mine, and I'm going to share those here in a second. But let me get to the chat real quick. Thanks for blowing it up, chat. Make sure you guys are Patreon subscribers. You could have been a part of this live stream that I did yesterday, where we talked a lot of news. I also covered episode 2 of Impact on Pop, which I did not clip for YouTube, and I won't be clipping for YouTube. Maybe like down the road, I'll release it as like a series, but as of right now, it's exclusive to the Patreon. So go to patreon.com/The Mike and JD Show. Also, make sure you give me a thumbs up, lay down a comment, and subscribe to our channel. We'd like to get to 3,000 at some point. That'd be nice. We're like 23, closing in on 2,400. So we're trying to keep these numbers up. I've been doing a lot of live streams. I've been doing a lot of clipping for a lot of YouTube stuff. TNA does the best business on the channel. And the people ask me, Mike, why are you covering TNA so much? Well, right now, TNA is giving me a lot of talking points and a lot of things to cover. But I cover it because the impact of the TNA faithful, the crazies, the Meccans, they click on the videos and they watch them and then they interact with them. So that's why I continue to do it. I've built kind of an audience over since like 2019 where I do a lot of TNA stuff and it's always done my best numbers. So I'm like, I'll keep up with it. So let's get to the chat. But yes, the big news that we're covering today, and we're going to get into some other topics. And of course, you have questions, comments, concerns, throw those in the chat. Make it interactive. Let's have a good time. I got a little bit of time here before I got to get to my first meeting of the day. Yeah, so let's see. Pete Rocks says the Rascalz would be great on Ring of Honor. I agree. And people say like, if the Rascalz do get signed by AEW, and they say, oh, well, they'll be sitting in catering or they'll just be delegated to Ring of Honor. And sometimes that does happen with talent. Here's what I could say that I think is different about the Rascalz. And so far that has not happened with Speedball. That has not happened with Josh Alexander. That did happen with Deonna Purrazzo. She came in to AEW, got a title shot immediately. Something went wrong there with her in the company. And now she's on Ring of Honor. She's working her way back up, back to AEW television, right? And she's the Ring of Honor Women's Pure Champion. I think eventually Deonna's going to work her way back up because she's that talented. but something went sideways with her and Tony Khan. Okay, and I think it had something to do with the CMLL match, and things didn't go well, so they weren't happy with her for a little bit. So she got delegated to Ring of Honor. I don't even want to say delegated because a lot of people work Ring of Honor and they work AEW. They do a lot of both. They're not two separate rosters. So Ring of Honor is similar to NXT in the extent that that's where a lot of people get groomed, and they're honing new characters, and they put a lot of people there that maybe aren't ready for AEW, but a lot of people that are AEW like veteran, like Bandito's the Ring of Honor champion, right? A lot of main established stars in AEW work all the Ring of Honor shows. So to say that they would be delegated to Ring of Honor or they would never see the light of day on AEW television, I think you guys are selling the Rascalz short. And if you guys are actual big fans of the Rascalz, I don't think you should really do that because I think that they're super talented guys. And they actually would fit into AEW quite nicely. I think that the Young Bucks would love to work with them. I think FTR would love to work with them. And they got, all the other tag teams that are in that company. If you want to see where I think where they would be at, Jet Speed obviously is there. The Gang Bang Gang or whatever they're called now. And now they got Davis and Doyle. Brodito broke up recently. But I think they would be kind of like established, like right beneath that FTR Young Bucks level, to where they're kind of, getting a lot of reps and getting a lot of TV time. Like, for every Deonna Purrazzo that we've seen come into AEW from the TNA roster, you got guys like Speedball and guys like Josh Alexander that have been on either Collision or Dynamite every single week. Taurus, right? Doesn't win any matches, but he's like on TV all the time. So I don't think that would happen to the Rascalz. I think what they do fits well with what AEW does. They do all the moves and the kickouts and the horse shit and all that stuff. And that's what AEW likes. Now, would they take all of them? And I think, we'll get into that. But let's see. Let's get to some more of the chats. Hold on. What was this one? Nicholas Riley first. He said, "Hey, Mike, I've been wanting all four Rascalz together in TNA for years. It'd be a shame if they left, but they have to do what's best for them." I think that's the adult way to look at it, for sure. I agree. If you take a look at their last two matches where they did the 8-man tags, it kind of seemed like it was kind of a farewell tour. That's what it appeared to be like for me. Like, they're just like, hey, let's get these last two feel-good moments because we're probably not going to get this again. Chad says, "I'm holding out hope that they return." Billy says, "They didn't leave, right? But they opened the door, and companies are absolutely already knocking." I think if AEW is not knocking, they're foolish. They should be knocking if they're not. Okay, Chad. Okay, yeah. So this is the point that I wanted to get to. Myron Reed was never under contract. He was a per date guy. He only got brought in last summer because Trey Miguel was hurt for a little bit. So he was teaming with Zachary Wentz. And then when Trey Miguel got healthy, they had them do trio stuff. And then when Desmond Xavier became a free agent, then he got brought in. So I think that they were all on separate deals that kind of came in. Like the three, like Desmond Xavier, I don't think was ever on a deal either. I think he was just brought in for those dates. So really, the only guys whose contracts are expiring are Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel. And so that's really it's really it's not 4 contracts, it's 2 contracts. So TNA would not be losing 4 guys; they'd be losing essentially 2 guys off the roster. Let's see. So back to Myron Reed. So a lot of people think that the reason why the Leon Slater match got pulled was because Myron Reed, his contract lapsed, and that's not true. Like, he was never under a contract. I think that if that match was still on, Myron Reed would be there, right? Unless, of course, he signed with another company, which I guess could happen, but it wasn't because his contract expired. He was not under a contract. He was on a per date deal. So this wasn't a situation where the contracts lapsed and TNA had to pull the match, and then they decided they're going to go ahead and send Leon to the WWE for a weekend. No, it was, and I'm going to get to Leon in a little bit, but If that wasn't the case, the reason why the match got pulled is because Leon got booked in hold on. Leon got booked for SmackDown. Got booked for the European tour. So that's why that match got pulled. It had nothing to do with Myron Reed. I think Myron Reed would have kept the date. And in fact, I don't know that Myron Reed's even leaving. I think he's a member of the Rascalz, but at no point was he ever kind of tied to them contractually. Right? He only got brought in for certain dates and certain occasions, and he's kind of always been on his own. And then on the Indies, sometimes they work together, but Myron is his own man. Myron has been all over the Indies as a single act for a long time. So I wouldn't assume that if the other guys are leaving that Myron would go with them. History has proven that that's not actually the case. So, all right, let's see. This is the same spot Saban and Shelley were in, except the Rascalz are 10 years younger, so they have way more leverage. Yeah, I agree. I think the Rascalz do have the leverage in this situation, because I think AEW would covet talents like that. Now, here's the downside for the Rascalz, and the only reason why I think that AEW might not go for them is because Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel had some maturity issues online and were a little bit problematic a long time ago. And the AEW fan base is a more sanctimonious, holier than thou type fan base. As you saw, there's a new female that that AEW had signed like a year ago named Vic or something like that. Tetra, I've never heard of her. She's like 36, super tall, OVW, and turns out she's a Republican. And like a MAGA, like a right-wing Republican. And you never see her on TV, probably because she's a Republican. Nobody knew she had signed. And the moment the Fightful breaks the story, sure enough, you got people going through her tweets. It's like, oh my God, she's a Republican. How dare you? Like, I ain't a Republican either. But like, should she not have a job because of how she votes? I don't know. That's weird. But so with Zachary Wentz, obviously he got fired from the WWE because of the Nazi salute thing, and then Trey Miguel had a bunch of like political, immature, kind of gross posts early in his like independent days, and I think hasn't had any issues like that since then. Has been working everywhere since with no problems whatsoever. Has really calmed down his social media behavior, and is a total pro. But I think that if they were to get signed by AEW, like that stuff would resurface, and it would be targeted. There's going to be there will be WWE fans. They're going to be like, "Oh, you got AEW sickos are holier than thou. Well, you guys are signing these guys. Look at their past behavior." Like that stuff's going to come up, and then of course you're going to already have the existing fans that are really sanctimonious, that like to tear people down when they make mistakes and don't want to give anybody a leg up or a hand up, even though they've changed and they've improved their behavior. Zach Wentz publicly apologized for everything, but they don't care about that stuff. So that stuff's going to come back up, and some people are going to not want them there. And in fact, some of my posts about the Rascalz, there's a section of the fan base that don't want them there, right? So so that could be one of the reasons why maybe they don't sign with AEW. I think that would be a foolish thing. And if I were advising Tony Khan, I would say block out the noise and block out the very few fans that would be offended by the Rascalz coming in, and embrace them as great talents. That would be my advice to Tony Khan. Let's see. Chad says, I need the heel Myron with Killer Kelly to rule TNA main event act. Yeah, I mean, I remember I was trying to sell everybody on that act. I was like, I think Myron should turn on the Rascalz and then go heel, and then Killer Kelly be his manager. But now Kelly's gone. Who knows what's happening with Myron, and who knows what's happening with the Rascalz? So we might not get any of that. But yeah, that'd be great. Deanna sadly gets no reaction anymore. I'll be honest, I have not watched modern Ring of Honor, so I can't speak to that. But if you're saying it, I believe it. I think she's a great talent, and if she were to come back to TNA, I think she'd be like back in the same spot as she was in when she left, for sure. Let's see. The Rascalz matter to TNA because they're homegrown X Division stars. They bring energy, credibility, and a loyal fan base that the company can't easily replace. Yeah. So the modern leadership of TNA does not value that. What they value is, are you a television star, or can you be a television star? They don't value the fact that these guys come in and are a complete change of pace from everybody else on the roster. Every match they have is like, if you want to be called to total nonstop action, you need an act like the Rascalz, right? Because they are nonstop action. But they're also charismatic, and they're funny, and they're charming, and they're endearing, and the fan base loves them. And every time they come out, the crowd goes crazy for them. Are they big television stars like the Hardys? No. Are they as famous as Elijah and Mustafa Ali? No. Are they better in the ring than all of those guys? Yeah. Do they have the most exciting matches on the card every time? Yes. Is that valuable? To Mike, it's valuable. But to these guys, I don't think they value the fact that they're homegrown stars. I don't think that that's important to them. And as evidenced by the fact that Ace Austin and Josh Alexander are currently in AEW. And so, and evidenced by the fact that these guys were not, like, their contract shouldn't have even come due. Like, the moment that Desmond Xavier was available, they should have signed all four to like a multiple year deal, right? But they're just not doing that. And I just don't understand why. Okay. All right. What's the difference of Macklin's kind of like extension than an actual extension? Okay. So we'll talk about Steve Macklin, and I think it's important. So his contract also expired at the beginning of the year, and what they did is they just extended him out probably for 90 days. That hasn't been reported, but that's my read on the situation. PW Insider broke that it was kind of like an extension, meaning like it's like they probably, like the deal that he has right now, they just kind of pushed it out to buy themselves more time. By each side gets more time. And so Macklin is now taking bookings through April, meaning like he's with TNA through April. And then after that, it looks like he doesn't know, so he's not going to be taking bookings because maybe he'll go back to WWE or maybe he'll go to AEW. Again, TNA does not value the fact that Macklin's a homegrown star. I consider Macklin a homegrown star. I don't care about Steve Cutler. Steve Cutler means nothing to me. Nothing. Steve Macklin's a star, and he's a TNA star, and as far as I'm concerned, a TNA original character, and they don't value that. They value guys that they believe are TV stars, that are famous, that can actually improve their Q rating, right, and get them social media clicks and views and likes and stuff like that. They don't value, like, if you're a hard worker and you're a good worker in the ring and you give it everything you got every night, they don't care. They're not going to compensate you for that. The only thing that they care about is if they think that you bring them more eyeballs. That's it, right? And it's a shame because I think that you need those guys that are working hard to keep the show going, and then you can bring in the Hardys and the Nemeths and whatever else, the famous guys, to get some extra butts in the seats, right? But you need those guys, the other guys, to carry the show, carry the workload. Macklin's one of those guys. And I think Macklin could be a big star for them if they knew how to book him right. They just know what the fuck they're doing. Okay. I'm a big fan of the Rascalz and AEW, but they're WWE fans. I'm afraid they'll go there. Unfortunately, as for Myron, I don't think so, though. So the Rascalz were already in WWE. so unless, they got rid of Desmond X, they literally just fired the guy. Or they let his contract expire. They had Wentz before and they fired him. The only guy that they didn't have was Trey Miguel, and they did actually book Trey Miguel on some house shows. So maybe I could see Trey Miguel going to WWE and NXT. That's the one guy that they haven't had. And then Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz going to AEW as just a tag team. And they can bring over that MSK act that was on NXT that I felt was a good act and was really popular, and they're getting some steam. And AEW could bring that act over, and then Myron Reed sticking around with TNA. I could see that. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that all four guys are gone, or that they're all going to the same company. If AEW wanted to make a big statement, and I said this yesterday on Twitter, and I mean this, I was not making a joke. I absolutely mean it. If AEW wanted to shoot a shot across the bow at TNA, they would bring in all four Rascalz on Dynamite, a la the Radicals back in the day when Benoit, Malenko, Saturn, and Guerrero left WCW. They were in I take it back. Benoit was the world champion at one point, but for the most part, those guys were like lower card guys who were very good, and they were booked. They were way more talented than they were booked. They gave Benoit the world title as kind of like a please don't leave type of thing, but they never really saw him as the world champion there in WCW. And they showed up, a week later on Raw, and they broke record ratings, and that was like a big story. Now, of course, Triple H had to beat them all. Like they all had to lose, but so they ruined it. But AEW could do something similar. It's like, hey, look, TNA's got this new TV deal. They're competitive now. They're competitors. Now, what I mean by competitors, that AEW sees TNA as a competitor. They do see TNA as a competitor. That doesn't mean that TNA is a threat to their position in the pecking order, in the hierarchy, right? Like AEW is solidly, firmly number 2 based on every single metric that there is and based on roster depth. Right? You talk about ticket sales, ratings, pay-per-view buys, merchandise, obviously TV revenue, like every single metric, they're like number 2, and TNA is not even close. But with TNA getting this new TV deal, they are a competitor for market share, meaning like there may be some people that prioritize TNA over AEW. Maybe some folks that were TNA fans before, but they didn't get Access TV, and they didn't want to pay for the TNA Plus, and it just wasn't on their basic cable package. And like, okay, well, I'm going to give TNA a chance again, and maybe they like the style of stuff that TNA does. And TNA is being backed by and supported by WWE, and maybe that's appealing to some folks. And now, if you're an AEW sicko, like I'm not talking about you, I'm just talking about like average Joes out there that pro wrestling is not their life, right? That's who I'm talking about. You're like, oh, Mike, how could anybody prioritize TNA over AEW? This is absolutely awesome. I'm not talking about you, fuckface. I'm talking about like other people, like normal people, right? or like, 5-star matches on every show is not that important to them. They like angles and storylines, right? Like I'm talking about those people. So TNA is actively competing for AEW's market share. So AEW could shoot a shot across the bow, sign all 4 guys, have them on Wednesday night tonight, and send a signal that, they're not fucking around with these TNA guys, right? I think that they could do that, and that would be big. I think that would be a big move by Tony Khan to do that, because you're not only you're adding to your roster, but you're taking away from the number 3 and making sure that they're not getting too close to you. And because AMC is a big channel, it's not as big as TBS and TNT, but it's a big channel. And at some point, maybe AMC would want to pay TNA some money if they become successful, right? So you probably want to prevent that. And the first thing they did was take Jake something, although I don't think they didn't take arm twisting for Jake. He wanted out, and TNA let him go, and now he's with AEW, right? And he wasn't really a big star for TNA. But the Rascalz are like, TNA fans love the Rascalz for sure, and they're one of the most popular acts on the show. So to take that act, it would really send a signal that you're not fucking around with these TNA guys. Okay. Says Moose is the only long-term talent. Everyone else is up for grabs here till then. Having laid that talent hurts TNA creative, which is annoying. Yeah, but TNA has to be willing to pay for that. Like, you have to pay for loyalty. If you want Nick Nemeth to be on more than a per-date deal, you want him to be on a long-term deal, you have to pay for that. Nick Nemeth came from WWE, where he's probably making upwards of $1 million per year, and he's coming to TNA making what, $6,000 a date, right? Like, if TNA wants him to be loyal, they have to pay for it. If not, he's going to prioritize, independent dates. Let's see, I'm a big fan of the Rascalz and AEW, but they're oh yeah, we already talked about that. Okay. Chad says, I hope no one goes back and read what I put on Twitter and Facebook when I was in college, a few drinks deep. Dude, for sure, me too. I'm a sober guy. I had a real bad drinking problem for a long time, and I said some asinine shit. on Facebook, to where like on my memory, sometimes an old post comes up and I have to delete it because I'm like, I got kids now. I'm a professional. I got colleagues on my Facebook. Like I don't need them going through my shit, man. That would be embarrassing. I said a lot of stupid stuff. Let's see. By losing the Rascalz, TNA lost half of the X division. Good luck replacing them. It affects the X division and it affects the tag team division. Like legit, and it affects, what is usually the highlight, one of the main highlights of the show. It's like the Hardys are drawing people, but the funnest part of every show is usually the Rascalz. So they're great. Okay, let's see. Nicholas says, off topic, but two rising indie talents that TNA could definitely use. Starboy Charlie and LeBron Cozone were at WWE tryouts this weekend. They have to do a better job of looking at future talents. Here's how TNA is looking at future talents. Who is getting fired from WWE, NXT, and AEW? That's who they're targeting. As far as on the men's side, the women's side, they've actually done a pretty good job of recruiting. Like they got Mila Moore and Mila Grace and Harley Hudson and Jada Stone and all these folks. Maggie Lee, Heather Reckless, like they've done a pretty good job there. With the men, every man that they seem to bring in has been off somebody's scrap heap. So I agree with you. And we've talked ad nauseum on this show about them upgrading their independent talent recruiting efforts and getting out there to shows and stuff like that and recruiting some of the men. But they are not. So, or at least I have not seen the evidence that they're doing that. Okay, I wish TNA would open up for their fans for input on what any talents could be brought in to help shape the future of the company. I mean, they all like Johnny Bravo and the other lady. I can't remember her name. And of course, Tommy Dreamer. They're on Twitter. You can tag them, and you can do it over and over again. That's usually what gets on their radar. Let's see, TK and Triple H see every other company as a showcase for talent they can sign and nothing else. Yeah, I mean, look, every smaller company is a feeder system to AEW and WWE right now, including New Japan and CMLL and NOAH and all these other places. You take a look at AEW's roster the last couple of years, where they've been getting talent. They've been taking talent. I mean, obviously the Indies, they have a robust recruiting system. But no one has signed more talent off the New Japan and TNA roster than AEW has the last 2 years. WWE has signed exactly 2 people off TNA's roster. Leon's going to be a third, and I'm going to get into that. AEW has like more than doubled that number. And then, of course, they have absolutely pilfered the New Japan main event scene, to where that company's hurting, right? So if TK really wanted to hurt TNA, he would sign the Rascalz, move Collision to Thursdays, and heavily feature Speedball, Josh, Ace Austin, and the Rascalz. I could see the Collision moving to Thursdays. The only reason Tony didn't want to move it to Thursdays is because of NFL. But there might be on weeks that the Jags are playing on Thursday nights, he can just tape. And in fact, he should probably just tape Collision after Dynamite anyway, and then they can go back to back. Right? They could do that. But I could see that for sure. I hope it doesn't happen, but I could see that. Okay. When the Rascalz were with Macklin for a minute, I was hoping that he would have gotten a Macklin and Rascalz boot camp training. Yeah, I think that dynamic just didn't work. Macklin's serious. Like they tried to play it off because Macklin's kind of a serious guy, and the Rascalz are very unserious. And I just think they ended up having to drop it because they just wasn't work. But hey, Perez Hilton is coming in. Yeah, Perez Hilton and Bulky Ray. Yesterday I tweeted that Bulky Ray was coming back to TNA, and I said Bulky. I made sure to say that. And Gail Kim quote tweeted me saying that Bully Ray would beat me up. I'm like, yeah. Like if you ever saw me, but he's not gonna see me, right? I'll tweet. If we ever did meet in person and he wanted to fight me, he would have the opportunity. I would lose. I'm not a tough guy, but I wouldn't back down from the guy. I would try to get a couple shots in before he smothered me and kicked my ass. But yeah, but I ain't no coward. I ain't no punk bitch. Like I'll talk my shit and I'll back it up if I have to. But calling the guy bulky, I didn't think is that all that offensive. Like Like he's a fat guy, right? Oh, come on. Yes, calling him bulky is almost a compliment if you think about it. But okay, Leon Slater. Let's talk about Leon. And I got just a few more minutes. Leon. So I don't know this for a fact, and I'm not reporting this. I just kind of a theory that I have, just based off of some conversations that I've had and things that are taking place. If Leon does indeed work Genesis, which I think he will because he's still being advertised, we already know he's not working Thursday night. He's going to be in Europe, and hopefully he makes the trip back to the States and he works Genesis. I could see a situation where Cedric Alexander pins Moose or vice versa, and you get a new X Division champion without Leon Slater getting pinned, and then Leon's just gone. I think we should brace for that possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not reporting it's going to happen. I just think that it's a very real possibility that Leon goes unbeaten for that championship, and that he actually leaves in January versus like at the end of the year or the summer. Like a lot of people speculated like he's going to be like, we all know he's going, right? WWE is going to take him. That is happening. I think it's a real possibility that it happens sooner rather than later, for sure. What that looks like, how TNA is compensated, like, I don't know. I don't know anything. But NXT was flat out gutted recently. And a lot of their stars got brought up to the main roster because of the third hour being added to SmackDown. I also think that WWE main roster cuts are coming within the next few months. They usually happen right around WrestleMania time. But sometimes like it's after Mania, but sometimes it's before. Like they don't really have like a schedule when they want to cut people. But I think a lot of cuts are coming. NXT did do some call ups from like Evolve and WWE ID to kind of backfill some of the slots, but I could see Leon Slater being full-time NXT starting like now, like right now, because they lost Obafemi, Trick Williams, and among others, and they let Jordan Grace got called up, and more. I think JCJ is getting called up soon, and so that show is going to struggle with some of the star power, right? It's going to be carried by Ricky Starks, and I like Ricky, but he's like in his late 30s. It's time for him to go up too. So they need something. All right, last comment before I go. Okay, TNA needs all that Rascalz money for one person, Matt Taven. Yeah. With every year at this time, we get major roster turnover because much like New Japan, TNA does a lot of their contracts come up at the same time, and they're going to backfill the slots. How they backfill the slots, I'm not really sure. I could see Matt Taven, EC3 is openly begging for a job, so if he's not signed already, it's kind of embarrassing on his part because that's not how you get signed by TNA. You don't beg for the job in public. You work behind the scenes and you just try to get on the card. But he's probably already signed, to be honest with you. And but like I said, Matt Taven, I could see EC3. I could see, you got Dakota Kai is out there. Braun Strowman. I don't know what he wants to do with his life. I don't even know if he wants to wrestle anymore. So I don't know about that one. You got Duke Hudson. He's out there. The Rich Holland, he's hurt right now, but I can see him like later in the year coming. So they have some roster spots open up. But the one guy that is like a constant people keep bringing up is Trevor Lee, and it wouldn't shock me to see Trevor Lee like this week, especially if the Rascalz are gone, because they need to replace that Myron Reed Leon Slater match with something. And so I think look, TNA is getting AJ Styles as a make good. I think another way to make up for the audience is to have a X Division type showcase match. I am expecting it to be announced today at some point. But they do need to have some type of showcase for that show to showcase the X Division, because if you're getting in on these new viewers, one of the things you want to highlight, they're already highlighting, they got the world title, right? They're going to highlight the Hardy Boys. Makes sense. They got the knockouts with Inspiration and the Elegance brand. And but they should save the Knockouts Championship for the following week in Albuquerque. And they should, highlight the X Division. They need an X Division showcase, and the Leon Slater Minor Raid was that, so they got to replace it with something. I don't know that you want to put, Cedric Alexander some big match 2 days prior, and he's already the number one contender. Moose is already a contender. So it's like, who else do you have on the card? Well, Hotch is already in a match against the Hardy Boys. So I was like, I'm trying to think. Like, I don't even know who else is in the X Division anymore. So they're going to have to bring in somebody. So Trevor Lee makes a lot of sense. Chad Schultz says Lee is tight with the Hardy Boys. Yeah, he's tight with the Hardy Boys. Matt Hardy seems to be gaining power in the company. It makes sense that he would come in. But all right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for hopping on this live stream with me. Make sure you go to patreon.com/the Mike and JD Show. I got to run to a meeting. And then on my lunch break today, JD and I are going to get together and we're going to do a witching hour. And we're going to talk about the Zodiac Killer. A lot of interesting news is out about the Zodiac Killer and the Black Dahlia murders and all that stuff. So lots of interesting stuff. Witching Hour is something that I did, talking paranormal serial killers, like UFOs, ghosts, like all the kind of like weird shit that I'm into. JD's actually going to start doing some of that stuff with me. So, but all right, guys, that's going to do it for me this time. And until next time, mahalo.